News Central now at this hour begins in the west of the continent, where Mali and Burkina Faso have formally notified the Economic Community of West African States of their intention to withdraw from the regional bloc, with Niger likely to follow suit. The military regimes in these nations have cited concerns over ECOWAS encroaching on their sovereignty as grounds for their pullout. In a joint declaration, the three countries accused ECOWAS of turning from its founding principles and falling under external influence, posing a threat to member states. In the meantime, Nigeria, a key player in the region, has expressed sadness over the departure of the countries from the bloc, reaffirming its commitment to due process and welfare of all citizens of member states. Despite the rift, Nigeria stressed that it remains open to engagement with the departing nations. Let's also tell you that hundreds of people have taken to the streets of Niamey to celebrate the announcement made by the military regimes in Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger on their immediate pullout from the West African bloc, ECOWAS. The Prime Minister, appointed by Niger's regime on Thursday, blasted ECOWAS for bad faith after the bloc largely shunned a planned meeting in Niamey. ECOWAS blamed an aircraft technical fault in Abuja for the cancellation of its mission to Niger.
Nous sommes là parce que c'est une demande des peuples des États du Sahel pour sanctionner la CEDEAO qui à l'origine était partie pour être une CEDEAO des peuples, mais qui s'est avérée être un instrument au service de l'impérialisme français.
Nous sommes libérés de cette CEDEAO-là. Au diable leurs sanctions. Et on considère que dorénavant, il y aura des accords bilatéraux avec les autres États. Donc c'est fini avec cette structure satanique qui veut étouffer le peuple nigérien ou bien le peuple du Sahel parce qu'ils ont décidé de quitter l'impérialisme français.
Earlier, Global Affairs analyst Calvin Dark spoke to us on these developments.
Some people have questions, if it was a wise decision. I think that's at the heart of the problem. That's why we have elections. That's why democracy exists, so that people can elect leaders who represent what they want. We can't just pick a person or a group who may be protesting in the street for or against and assume that we know what the people want. That's what democracy is for. And I think what this situation has taught me is that two things can be true at the same time. It can be true that ECOWAS has lost the confidence of many people in the countries that it's supposed to represent, and that it allows foreign powers, France, other colonial powers, to have undue influence in what it does. That can be true. And at the same time, it can be true that the military leaders who have no respect for democracy also have no legitimacy and credibility to say that they can speak for the people, because they have ignored the one way where we can know what that is, and that's elections. Here's the problem. This doesn't hurt ECOWAS as much as it hurts the people in the three countries that withdrew and the people remaining, because that makes ECOWAS less strong. And here's why. It would have been better, I believe, to work to improve ECOWAS, to work to correct those things. Because in all practicality, not being a part of ECOWAS also means that these countries, through their military leaders, unelected leaders, are also not going to be involved with Europe and the West and the United States. Practically, because even though there are leaders in the United States who totally agree that the leaders in those countries where the military took over were not paying attention to the security situation like they should, the United States is not going to work with a military dictatorship that can't even work with the organizations on the continent. And so from a practical standpoint, it would have been better to reform ECOWAS, because in the end, it's not going to be ECOWAS that pays. It's going to be the people in these countries.
We now head to Nigeria, where Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara has warned the newly appointed Chief of Staff and Commissioners not to use their new position to stalk or antagonize perceived political enemies. Governor Fubara gave the warning shortly after swearing in the Chief of Staff at the Government House, as well as special advisors at the executive chambers of the Government House in Port Harcourt on Monday. The governor noted that the purpose of governance was to render services even in the face of difficulties. He urged the newly sworn-in appointees to see their appointment as a call to duty, rise to the occasion of adding value to governance, and demonstrate that they are truly credible men of the state. Those sworn in were Ehi Edison as Chief of Staff, Government House, with Dr. Darlington Orji, Solomon Eke, Aminanayam Sam Fiberesima, Dia Barenye, and Ohia Prince as special advisors. Let's also tell you that the Rivers State House of Assembly has accused the governor, Timinalayi Fubara, of engaging in illegality with regards to his recent appointment. The Speaker, Martin Amawole, leveled the accusation against the governor during plenary on Monday at the Assembly quarters in Port Harcourt, the state capital. The appointment to head three parastatals of government, namely Local Government Service Commission, Bureau of Public Procurement, and New City Development Authority. The Speaker explained that the mode of appointment was provided for in the law and there is no provision for acting chairman. The Speaker accused the governor of tyranny, even as the House resolved to write a letter to him warning against his actions. The new developments in the Assembly have continued to fuel speculation about whether or not the House would resume its aborted impeachment proceedings against the governor. Earlier, Godswill Jumbo, a political commentator, spoke to us on these developments.
The House of Assembly, the purported House of Assembly members, making issues with the governor about his appointments. They are no more members of the House of Assembly by law. They don't exist. The whole contraption, sitting somewhere saying things and getting a few bloggers to put it out for the people, for the public to see. It does not amount to anything. I said it here on your program, that the whole drama that the FCT minister and his cohorts are, weaving around the governor, His Excellency Timinalayi Fubara, it will amount to nothing. It will fizzle out. It's just a matter of time. When trying to set him up with the president leading to work, impeaching him leading to work, they thought maybe the Supreme Court will be swept away. But at the Supreme Court, we have learned justices. We have justices who have their own reputation consolidated in their own rights. And they are not pushovers. They should be able to look at the issues, look at the merits of the matter, and look at the implications of the polity, and be able to come up with wise judgment.
We now turn our attention to security matters, where the Nigerian Navy ship Pathfinder in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, said its personnel arrested 11 suspected oil thieves in Krakrama Creeks in Asari Toro local government area of Rivers State. The Navy said the suspects were arrested while in a wooden boat laden with equipment used in the construction of an illegal refining site. The commander, NNS Pathfinder, Commodore Desmond Igbo, disclosed this while parading the suspects and the items before newsmen in Port Harcourt on Monday before handing them over to personnel of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. Commodore Igbo said the items include 20 gas cylinders were carefully concealed in a boat to ward off the eyes of operatives. The further findings reveal that the suspects were conveying the items to Belay General Area for the construction of an illegal refining site. The Northern Youth Progressive Network has called for the continuous use of private security companies to tackle the menace of oil theft in the country. The group, while speaking to newsmen in the nation's capital, Abuja, says that since the adoption of this strategy by government, Nigeria has witnessed an increase in daily oil production and recorded less incidences of pipeline vandalism.
All security agencies have been overstretched. So bringing in private security to collaborate, most especially private securities who are committed towards the growth and development of this great nation, Nigeria, I think it must be encouraged, because even in the United States, there are private securities that augment or consolidate the U.S. Army. So there's nothing bad about it. And today we are stating unequivocally that Tantita security outfit has done a marvelous job. If you follow the trend of oil theft in Nigeria, you get to understand that since their involvement in this security, in safeguarding the pipeline facility, the production thereabout.
You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Mr. Usman Imana, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Usman Imana.
Yes.
All right, so we need a little bit of space between your head and the frame above. Just a little headroom. Okay, it's too much. If you can close up a bit. Okay. Okay, Mr. Imana, where is your location?
Sorry?
Where are you at the moment, your location?
I am at our Yaba office.
Yaba?
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk to you very shortly.
Okay.
Thank you for staying tuned. And now to a business-related story. Manufacturers have issued a stark warning about the impending price hikes of commodities in response to the persistent decline of the naira against the United States dollar. Speaking in an interview, the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Francis Meshoye, disclosed that consumers should brace themselves for increased cost of goods due to the continuous depreciation of the naira in the parallel market. Meshoye noted that such price hikes would undoubtedly strain the already dwindling purchasing power of consumers, worsening their financial burdens. According to him, the frequent fluctuations in the forex market have made it difficult for manufacturers to make long-term plans. The depreciation of the national currency has been a key driver of soaring inflation rates, with the National Bureau of Statistics reporting a staggering 28.92% inflation rate as of December 2023. And to talk about this further, I'm being joined live on the news by the Managing Director and CEO of Friska Farms Limited, Usman Imana. Good afternoon, Mr. Imana. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Same here.
All right, let's get straight into it. Now, how has the recent decline in the value of the naira affected manufacturing operation in the country?
The decline in the value, right, of the naira has there are many sides to it, right? So I'm saying this upfront so that we just don't look at the negatives, right? So I mean, first and foremost, the first thing that you hear manufacturers talk about is the cost of imported raw materials, right? Because these raw materials, a lot of the things that we manufacture in Nigeria, there's one or two inputs that we have to bring in from foreign countries. Now, when you are moving from 700 naira to the dollar to 1,400 naira to the dollar, what that just means is that the cost of your inputs has more than doubled, and of course this would impact on the price of the product. And if you are not properly financed, it will also impact on your capacity because you are not able to bring in enough to produce to demand. So that's on one hand. Now, the second is inflationary pressures on the economy, right? The loss in value of the naira means that, the cost of the products that, are coming out from the factories it's going to be more expensive. And this has the multiplier effect on the economy as whole. And, when you are manufacturing, especially when you are medium to large scale, there's always, you always have debt. And a lot of manufacturers have sourced financing from foreign countries. So if you have a dollar-denominated debt, what this decline in value of the naira means is that what you would have serviced, you are aside from the interest element of that debt, you will also faced with, I don't even know how to. I'm looking for the right choice of words now that is not alarmist to describe what most of these manufacturers are facing. Declining the value of the naira also reduces our profitability. The truth is, where we are today in Nigeria, right? The value of the naira, because subsidy has been removed, right? So petroleum products that are imported, and this is before any of the refineries starts to churn out products. Any of the any petroleum product that is imported, you know that it is imported at the prevailing price of the dollar, which means that energy price, as in price of petroleum products and diesel, will continue to fluctuate, if not increase. Now, because we have not properly solved the power and infrastructure problem, when the price of diesel goes from 800 naira to 1,200 naira, for people that just use diesel generators, right, in their homes, the impact is linear. But for a manufacturer, it impacts your power costs. It impacts on the cost of your raw material, local raw materials, because you are moving those raw materials from source to factory. And most times you are using heavy duty vehicle which run on diesel. So that increase in price also impacts on the transportation cost. It also impacts on the cost of the raw material. So you see that the effect is more.
Just to quickly ask you, Usman, because of our time, and I still have a couple of questions for you, just very quickly. For manufacturers, what measures would you recommend to mitigate the effect of currency depreciation?
Personally, I think that manufacturers should focus a lot on exports, right? So that they're able to earn foreign exchange. We should also try to backwards integrate as much as possible, because if you source most of your raw materials locally, it will shield you. It will kind of shield you from the impact of fluctuating foreign exchange. It doesn't shield you 100%, but to a large extent it shields you from the volatility of FX. So focus on exports, backwards integrate so that you source most of your raw materials locally. Try and manage energy costs. Look for alternative sources of energy. Plan do your energy audits and plan properly to see how you can optimize. And as much as possible, stay away from foreign debt.
Now, consumers have been advised to brace themselves for another rise in price of commodities. What do you make of that?
It's the reality of the times. It's the reality of the times. There's no way to explain there's no way to explain ourselves out of it. Some of our customers had complained in one forum that the price of one of our products had almost doubled, and they were complaining. And my response to them was that if somebody is selling you products that a product that has not fixed their pricing, has not adjusted their pricing in the last 6 months, you should be worried, because what it means is that it's either you are getting substandard products or fake products. Something has to give, right? Something has to give. So it's the reality of the times.
All right, let's talk.
Unfortunately, we are where we are.
Okay, now let's talk solutions now. Looking ahead, what measures do you believe are necessary to stabilize the currency and also minimize disruptions in the manufacturing sector?
Okay, in terms of stabilizing the currency, these are opinions. I'm not an economics or financial expert. I'm just a manufacturer. But from basic understanding of economics, right? Prices and rates are moved by supply and demand. We can be a bit optimistic, and this is not to say that, what I'm saying is cast in stone, but 60%, part of the reasons why we have a fluctuating currency rate is because the demand for the dollar is more than the supply. That's basic economics 101. What we're earning in dollars is not enough to sort out the balance of trade for for our taste. Now, from data that we have from past, 60%, up to 60% of our dollar requirements for the CBN is on energy, which is PMS, AGO, and jet oil, and ancillary petroleum products. So if the refineries can come online, they don't have to sell cheaper. They just have to sell to the marketers in Naira, so that there's no pressure on the CBN to source dollars to balance trade on importation of petroleum products. Ideally, on paper, this should reduce the pressure on the Naira, for the dollar, and there should be some form of stability. I stress the word on paper because Nigeria has been known to defy economic principles. Ideally, on paper, this should reduce the pressure, and we should see some form of succor, right? So that's on one hand. On the other hand, on Nigerians and on even leadership, we need to find a way to be more patriotic and change our tastes to go for local products.
And that's a fine place to wrap it up. Thank you so much. I'm afraid that's the most we can take on the news for today. But thank you so much for your insight on the news. Usman Imana, thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.
And still talking business, Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has disbursed $500 million to various sectors in a determination to address the backlog of verified foreign exchange transactions. Mrs. Hakama Sidi Ali, CBN's Acting Director of Corporate Communications Department, said this in a statement on Monday in Abuja. Now, this development comes barely a week after the Apex Bank paid approximately $2.0 billion to settle outstanding commitments across manufacturing, aviation, and petroleum sectors. She said that the management of the CBN was committed to settling all legitimate foreign exchange backlogs within a short time frame. She adds that the CBN had begun implementing a comprehensive strategy to improve liquidity in the Nigerian forex exchange market in the short, medium, and long term. And to help us understand this, we're joined live by Temitope Kolade, a Senior Manager and Lead ESG and Climate Change Services at Addison. Good afternoon from here. It's glad to have you join me. Okay, if you can hear me, I will just proceed. Let's look at the statement by Mrs. Hakima Sidi. It was mentioned that the Apex Bank recently paid approximately $2.0 billion in settlement of outstanding commitments in sectors such as manufacturing, aviation, and also petroleum sector. How do you think these funds, were utilized?
Well, the regulator is in the best position to answer that question, I would say, but apparently we should take them by the words. By their words, and expectedly you would see that for everything that is done within every other sector, there is the requirement for foreign exchange. If you think about the aviation sector, for instance, the jet fuel have to be paid for in USD. Sometimes expatriates are paid in USD, and across the sectors, there is always that demand, right? So in basically meeting vendors' obligations, you will always require some form of, foreign exchange to do that.
How do you think the CBN plan to ensure the effective and also timely settlements of all legitimate foreign exchange backlogs?
Well, whatever plan that the CBN has got is limited to how much they have in terms of the USD or whatever other form of foreign exchange currency that they need to use to meet the demands that they have. And that's why we keep talking about liquidity, right? There is only so much that they can do. We have the NNPC, for instance, going into swap transactions and ensuring that at least they get some loans from, say, the World Bank or the IMF or whichever bank, Afrexim Bank, to ensure that they're able to also get foreign exchange into the economy. But really, the CBN is only limited by the much that is remitted to it. We also hear that at some point, the CBN will now have to get those inflows directly that are due to the NNPC. So maybe that would help, but it's only as much as they have coming into the country in terms of foreign exchange that they can use to manage the liquidity situation that we're in.
Now, the statement also refers to the CBN's focus on addressing fundamental issues that have hindered the effective operation of the Nigerian forex market. Could you elaborate on these fundamental issues?
Well, one of the fundamental issues, you would agree with me, is that of transparency and the fact that sometimes you would have things around arbitrage, right? You find the gap between the official exchange rate, so to speak, and of course, the parallel market. And the gap sometimes keeps widening, even when we hear that the CBN says to us that, oh, we've unified it, we have an exchange rate, a unified exchange rate now. And that was indeed part of the issues that we thought we had during the last administration. But unfortunately, a bigger issue seemed to be that of the liquidity in itself, because in very many parts of the world, you find that what is done is a managed float system where the government is still, in a way, helping to cushion the effects and ensuring that the kind of peg the price of USD or whatever foreign exchange it is. But unfortunately, it appears that when that move was made to unify, it just made the Naira go down a free float, a free fall, right? And it then means that if those issues around arbitrage, because apparently, some people seem to have so much of Naira that don't have economic, backups for, and they have to just convert them to USD. And so that puts so much more pressure on the Naira and continues on the free fall. So there has to be more transparency. The banks, the commercial banks, have to have more control over what exactly is happening. And the reportage has to align with the real economic activities going on within the country.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the news. Temitope Kolade, thank you once again.
Thanks for having me.
We now head to South Africa, where global corruption watchdog Transparency International said on Tuesday that South Africa's corruption perception index has dropped to its lowest in 12 years and was below the global average. According to the organization, since Corruption Watch, the local chapter of Transparency International started tracking its progress on the index 12 years ago, and South Africa has never scored as low as 41 until now. With a general election due this year, the Southern African nation's image has been stained by a lackluster of economic record and also allegations of corruption. Support for its ruling party, the African National Congress, which has been in power since the start of the democratic rule in 1994, has dipped below 50% as the campaign heats up. South African former President Jacob Zuma has been suspended from the African National Congress, ANC, by the highest decision-making body, National Executive Committee of the party, a political party that he once led. His suspension follows an announcement he made in December that he will not be campaigning or voting for the ANC. South Africa will be heading to the polls for the general elections this year, and according to the ANC, Zuma not voting or campaigning for the party while a member is a breach of the party's constitution. Zuma has been given 48 hours to respond to allegations leveled against him. Earlier, Herman Pretorius, Director of Communications for South African Institute of Race Relations, spoke to us on these developments.
a whole range of opinion polls seem to indicate that the ANC, for the first time in 30 years, will not be securing an overall majority at a national level in a national and provincial election that elects the parliament and the government of the 9 provinces. So the ANC is quite in a vulnerable position, perhaps the most vulnerable position it has been in electorally. In the 2021 local government elections, the party failed to meet the 50% mark, and all opinion polls seem to indicate that they are struggling to get to that 50% mark. So at this stage, the ANC is quite vulnerable for its majority nationally, all polls seems to indicate. Now, former President Zuma, had a rather controversial 9 years in office where corruption and economic growth really became issues in the sense that economic growth flatlined and corruption just got out of hand. Now, those corruption problems have not been solved, but the economic problems have also not been solved. So the ANC is struggling with that. In Zuma's home province of KwaZulu-Natal, there's the traditional party of the Zulu people before 1994 was the Inkatha Freedom Party. So already in KwaZulu-Natal, the ANC is worried whether the IFP, the party of former leader who died.
And still in South Africa, the ambassador of the People's Republic of China in South Africa, Shen Xiaodong, hosted Chinese New Year celebrations, also known as the Spring Festival, in Pretoria on Monday. 2024 is dedicated as the Year of the Dragon, with the 5th animal sign in the Chinese zodiac cycle made up of 12 animals. The celebration provides a platform for cultural exchange with a vibrant and enriching experience, showcasing the rich traditions and customs of the Chinese community with a fusion of South African rich diversity. News Central's Bongani Siziba gives details.
Allow me to take you on an incredible ceremony to witness the rich cultural diversity of China and South Africa as China gears up to usher a new year. The celebrations began with amazing and colorful Chinese performances that showcased their rich cultural heritage. It's a cultural diplomacy at the center stage. During the ceremony, Zheng Xingdong, ambassador of the Republic of the People of China, expressed gratitude for the historic relationship between the two countries.
Our relationship and cooperation enjoy great support from our ordinary people. We always say we have special relationship that is comrade plus brothers. So that is historic relationship. So that's why we always say our cooperation move from better to better. We're looking forward to even better and even stronger relationship and cooperation in the year 2024, in the year of Dragon.
The highlight of the evening was the Dragon Dance, a staple of Chinese New Year celebration representing good luck and riches. The intricate movements of the dragon enchant the audience. The festival combined Chinese and South Africa cultures, presenting a magnificent blend of choreography, music, and costumes. It's a stunning representation of cultural interactions.
We hope that this relationship continues. It has been a very good one in BRICS, and direct diplomatic relations have been there since 1994. So we are happy to be here. We wish the Chinese people well, and they've been very good to us.
New Year is a very, very big event for our Chinese, just like your Christmas. And we want to share our happy with our local South African friends.
China and South Africa have a good bilateral relations and have been South Africa's largest commercial partner for the past 15 years. The bilateral trade volume in 2023 alone was $55.6 billion.
We look forward to growing trade between China and South Africa beyond the 900 billion rand we saw in 2023. China is South Africa's largest global trade partner. South Africa is also China's biggest trade partner on the African continent.
Beyond the dragon dances, Chinese cultural acts exhibited the diversity of their traditions. As the Chinese bid farewell to the year of the rabbit, their rich tapestry of cultures make their world so unique. From the streets of Chinatown to the heart of South Africa, the Chinese New Year celebration reminds one of the limitless possibilities that arise when different cultures come together. In Pretoria, for News Central, Bongani Siziba.
Authorities in Colombia seize 130 poisonous frogs being trafficked through the Bogota airport on Monday and arrested a Brazilian woman carrying them. The woman was transporting the colorful harlequin poison frogs inside film containers while traveling to Sao Paulo with a stopover in Panama. According to Bogota Environment Secretary Andreina Soto, in the video shared with journalists, she claimed that a local community had given them as a gift. Harlequin frogs are venomous, measure less than 5 centimeters, that's about 2 inches, and live in a damp forest along the Pacific coast between Ecuador and Colombia, as well as in other countries in Central and South America.
Ambiente, en conjunto con la Policía Aeroportuaria, confiscó 130 ranas dardo de una ciudadana brasileña que iba camino a Sao Paulo vía Panamá. Estas ranas dardo provenían de Nariño y la ciudadana adujo que se las había regalado a una comunidad local. La Secretaría de Ambiente está procediendo a aplicar el sancionatorio a esta ciudadana brasileña y, por otro lado, las 130 ranas confiscadas que venían en unos frascos de rollos fotográficos se encontraban, digamos, en un estado precario de salud. Estas ranas están siendo evaluadas para determinar su estado de salud por el Centro de Fauna de la Secretaría de Ambiente y con base en ello determinaremos si permanecen en el Centro de Fauna un tiempo más o son liberadas en su lugar de origen en Junín.
And now to sports stories. Bafana coach Hugo Bross believes that a win against Morocco in the Africa Cup of Nations last 16 clash will give South Africans a path to the final. Morocco and South Africa will meet at Stade Laurent Paul in San Pedro, and Bafana have a good record against the North Africans, though Morocco have won the matches that have counted in recent clashes. In 8 meetings against the Lions, South Africa have won 3, drawn 3 and lost 2. And to talk about this further, I'm being joined live on the news by Peter Kanjeri, a sports journalist. Good afternoon from here. Glad to have you join me from Malawi.
The pleasure is mine, and we're looking forward to the big game this evening.
Absolutely. Now, how would you describe the current form of the Bafana team going into this game?
You can say that Bafana are a team who are growing in stature and confidence, looking at how they started the tournament with a loss to Mali, and now they had to respond with an emphatic win of Namibia, and now they had to frustrate Tunisia into a goalless draw. That was just enough for them to get into the knockout stages. Now they have reached the business stage, and they are meeting the #1 team, you'd say, in Africa, the highest ranked team, ranked number 13 in the world. If you compare to Bafana, they are ranked number 66, plus 53 places. That's how huge the gap is. But it's football, and Morocco haven't had the best of the psychological side of the game, looking at what has happened to the coach, was banned. Now the ban has been lifted. So there's a bit of anxiety in the Moroccan camp, but it's a big one for Bafana. You would say on paper, Morocco are favorites. Everything seems to be ticking for them in terms of their pedigree. You look at the quality of the players, the depth, the ranking, but then at this stage, it's about who wants it the most.
Okay, let's talk a bit about tactics and then strategies. Can you provide some insight into the playing style and also key players of the Moroccan team?
So this is a game that will feature contrasting styles. Bafana, as you know, they are playing like more or less like Mamelodi Sundowns, their top team, the current form team on the club level. So Bafana like to build from the back. They like to play those through the angles, those short passes, and they thrive on combination play. With Morocco, they more or less like a more direct team. They play almost, you would say, like a European style of play, a bit of route one. They can also play from the back, but they'll play using the width, knowing that for them, they have a player like the PSG defender, Ashraf Hakim, who is so good offensively, as he is also so good defensively. So Bafana have to be careful because they have to avoid conceding set pieces. I'm talking about free kicks and corners. The North African teams, they're so good at making use of these opportunities. And also, Bafana should expect those balls behind the defense of bypassing the midfield. So for Bafana to do well, I think if they can get the combination play between the front line and the midfield, the Timbers one, getting us closer to Pesetau and Mangopa, you fancy that Bafana can snatch something in this game.
In your view, I mean, which key players should Bafana rely on to make an impact in this game?
So they have to ensure that Timbers one, who is their playmaker, one of the best at this tournament in terms of the creative play, the ability to exploit the spaces, to break the lines. So Timbers one is a man for Bafana. If Bafana can get the best of Timbers one, then you never know if they can score. But of course, they need, as I've said, they need Timbers one to be in form. It's not going to be easy. As I've said, I expect Morocco to try and bypass the midfield because they know the strength of Bafana is in midfield. So Timbers one for me, the key player for Bafana. But of course, if they are to win this game, they haven't been doing well in terms of the scoring consistently. They need Mangopa and Pesetau, especially Pesetau has played in these big games at Al Ahly, Brighton. He's a big name player, so he has to turn up on this big stage. So these two players, Timbers one and number one, they need the goals, Pesetau up front.
All right, thank you so much for your time, Peter Kanjere, all the way from Malawi. Thank you once again.
Pleasure.
And that's all on the news at this hour. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Malawi, Burkina Faso have notified regional bloc of pull-out plan. Groups in DR Congo have signed unilateral peace accord in historic move. And we told you that South Africa has recorded a 12-year low in corruption report. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.